Welcome back. Joining me now to discuss some of today's top stories is National Senator M.Canavan. M.Canavan, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Let's start with the Prime Minister landing in the United Kingdom, meeting with his counterpart there, Keir Starmer. Are you expecting this visit to shore up the AUKUS agreement?
Well, look, I'd hope, Julia, that the Prime Minister can just focus on issues that are important to Australia and that he can have some control over. So there is some hope there in the UK that he could turn the discussions in his international trip to things like AUKUS, which is very important for our defence, the acquisition of nuclear submarines, which does involve the UK government potentially taking some UK-designed submarines in the future. So, look, I hope that's the focus, because so far on this international trip, the Prime Minister's been focused on things which he can't control and which aren't going to help Australians improve their lives, which are for a lot of people suffering right now. I mean, the two main priorities of this government seem to be solving Middle East peace and changing the temperature of the globe. I mean, neither of those things can the Prime Minister do, but I suppose it's much more comfortable for him to promise things he can't be held accountable for, given the last time he promised something tangible, like lowering your power bills, it turned out to be a massive embarrassment for him.
We'll get to climate and net zero soon, but what do you make of the Prime Minister addressing this progressive summit over in the UK, pretty timely after those pointed comments from Donald Trump on climate change and immigration at the UN, don't you think?
Well, look, I just think the PM's totally out of step here with what's happening around the world. I mean, he continues to spruik this nonsense that Australia can be, in his words, a renewable energy superpower. I mean, that's what he promised to do in his first term. He promised that we'd have all of these hydrogen jobs, including up here in central Queensland. I mean, in the next few days, we could face the loss of tens of thousands of jobs if the Mount Isa copper smelter and the related refinery in Townsville shut. And there doesn't seem to be any focus from the Prime Minister on that. Glencore, the owner of that smelter and refinery, have asked to meet the Prime Minister. He's refused, and instead he's continuing to try to pursue this myth of renewable jobs. I mean, the question is, where are these jobs? The government's been in power for years. All of their investments in hydrogen have fallen over. The Prime Minister doesn't really talk about that anymore. And when it comes to renewable power, not a single wind facility has been approved, or has been started, this year. And there are no real jobs in these anyway long term. There are a few jobs for people installing the equipment. Often they're pretty unskilled. And then after they're done, after they're constructed, there's more jobs in your local Guzman Y Gomez than there is at a wind factory or solar factory. So they provide no long-lasting benefit to regional areas.
Can you paint a picture of the support that's needed for the Mount Isa copper smelter? We're awaiting that decision as to the future of the smelter. What support's needed, and what's the cost of not getting that? I mean, how many jobs are on the line?
Look, it's a lot of support, unfortunately. The situation here is a two-pronged problem. The first relates to what I was talking about, that our energy costs have skyrocketed because this government is so obsessed with renewable energy. We've now got some of the highest power prices in the world, and any type of manufacturing, but particularly things like copper smelting and refineries, take a lot of energy, and with the high energy costs we've got, that's very hard to continue. The other factor, the more immediate factor, is in the last couple of years, China's gone on a massive play to seek to corner the market in copper smelting and refining. That has caused the price of the processes for copper smelting to absolutely plummet, and it has been reported that Glencore is making losses of somewhere between $200 to $300 million a year. So obviously it's a lot of money, but the question we have to ask ourselves is, are we going to let China corner yet another industrial commodity? China produces about 40% of the refined copper in the world. They clearly want to lift that up to more than 50% like they do with most others. So should we let that happen? I don't think we should. In terms of the number of jobs, Julia, well, there's modelling that suggests that something like 17,000 jobs would be lost in North Queensland if these facilities shut. There's a fertiliser plant at Mount Isa which would also go if there was no longer the acid from the smelter to supply to it. that would mean unemployment in Townsville above 10%. It would be an economic catastrophe for North Queensland, and despite that amount of money needed for assistance, the cost to the government, both state and federal governments, of dealing with the fallout would no doubt be much more than that.
You mentioned China there. We've seen the US president sign an executive order paving the way for TikTok to be partly sold to American investors. Is this something that Australia should rejoice, or should we still be wary of the platform in your view?
Look, I suppose the devil's in the detail here, and we haven't seen all of that. There's been some uncertainty about who will control the algorithm for for TikTok long term. I suppose that's my principal concern, not so much the ownership structure itself, but the fact that there would appear to be some tilting of the scales on what content is seen on TikTok in Western countries. There's been reports and studies done which seem to indicate the content you get if you put in a Chinese IP address is very, very different from the content you are pushed if you're in Australia or the United States, etc. So I do worry about that type of influence operations that might be behind that algorithm, perhaps controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, who clearly sometimes does wish to sow discord, disunity within our countries. And so, look, that would be positive. I would rejoice if the algorithm can be more independent and controlled by someone who's not a bad actor. But look, as I say, the devil remains to be seen.
Frontbencher Andrew Hastie's being really outspoken on issues like immigration, manufacturing and abolishing net zero at the moment. We're running out of time, so just a yes or no answer would suffice. Is he undermining leader Susan Lee?
No.
M.Canavan, thank you for your time.
I'm happy to expand, but no.
Next time. Thank you.